Kevin Lobo, our VP of Analytics. Kevin started working at Analytics 8 7 years ago as a staff consultant. Today, Kevin leads our analytics service line, meaning he's responsible for ensuring the delivery of modern, high-impact solutions for each of our clients. He's helped essentially organizations in almost every industry use data and analytics as a means of transformative change. On a personal note, Kevin is also very highly talented at growing mustaches. His most recent mustache was revealed at our company Halloween party, where he won the costume award dressed as none other than Freddie Mercury. It was pretty fantastic. So one last thing before we get started, there are a lot of familiar names I see here, but just for those of you who don't know us, I wanted to quickly introduce you to Analytics 8. We are a data and analytics consulting company. We help companies with their entire data and analytics lifecycle, from strategies to implementation. So we help companies make sense of all their data, and then we help them use it to their strategic advantage. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Kevin so we can get started.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Sorry, folks, no mustache today. But as far as agenda, we have a couple of discussion points that we're going to be covering today. So namely, what is a superior data experience? We'll go through ways to build a better data experience, as well as some considerations and tips around getting started. So with that, let's dive into the content here. So the value and return on investment that organizations can achieve through the exploration and use of data is essential. But what's equally important to note is that data and insights are simply points of information. Without an effective means to make those insights accessible, usable, drive engagement, their value is never going to be realized. So every high impact analytics solution is at risk of being expensive shelfware if the idea of a superior data experience isn't at the forefront of your mind. So what does that exactly mean? In practice, your data and analytics solutions should be designed around the 4 core themes that are up on the slide. So data is accessible, data is actionable, data is transparent, and data can be monetized. So let's start with the first theme, making data accessible. So making data accessible is going to be the first topic that we cover here today. And at its core, it's the idea of making data more broadly available to those that are data literate within your organization. So this can come through varying mechanisms and entry points, which we'll cover in depth today. Making data actionable will be the second topic that we cover today. So this really pertains to building mechanisms for users to take and initiate action on the insights that they derive from an analytics solution. So Yelp is a great example of this. You search for a restaurant based off location and interest, you read through the pros and cons via user reviews, and then an option presents itself for you to either make a reservation or order delivery at the restaurant of your choosing. Effectively, you find what you're looking for and a mechanism presents itself for you to take action. So we'll go through this concept in depth a little bit later. The third topic that we're going to be covering today is making data transparent. So the concept of making data transparent really ties into the ability to see the context of your data. So transparency in a superior data experience means having things like data catalogs, data dictionaries, or data glossaries for users to understand exactly what they're looking at. Finally, providing improved offerings that drive more revenue or data monetization will be the last topic that we cover for today. So effectively, this means building solutions around a valuable data asset that you can package as a subscription to a willing customer base. So with that, let's dive into the concept of accessibility. So in this section, I'm going to cover the topics of running accessible data workloads, headless BI, and embedded analytics, and how those can make data broadly accessible to your user base. So following a treasure map can be a fun weekend activity with your kids, but when it's practically applied to the design of a data analytics solution, it's a recipe for user frustration. So simplicity, accessibility, and the ease of use should be of paramount importance to you. So accessibility in particular is core to building a data-driven organization. So let's start with the idea and concept of your users running data workloads that really give them the widest access possible. So there's a segment of business users out there today where a superior data experience simply entails the ability to run data processes that give themselves every data point at their disposal. So tools like Snowflake or AWS, or really any platform that enables read-only clone access, gives users the ability to run heavy data workloads to construct queries or processes that effectively return them data dumps which they can use at their disposal. So the key point in all of this is that this enables them to run these processes without fear or injuring or disrupting other business critical processes. So every developer out there has some sort of horror story of an analyst who decided to run a rogue query against a production database to return a data set that invariably brings the whole system down. By enabling access through governed cloud-based read-only copies, power users can run the queries necessary to return the data that they need. So the next concept I'm going to cover in terms of accessibility is this idea of headless BI. So headless BI is all the rage in certain data analytics circles right now, but it's really not a new or novel concept. Headless BI is essentially the idea of decoupling the semantic or modeling layer entirely from a BI or visualization tool. The BI tool strictly serves as a visualization layer with all the metrics, dimensions, data logic, all stored in a universal semantic layer that's going to be accessible to all BI and visualization platforms within your organization. So a great example of this is the prevalence of LookML. So LookML is the modeling layer for Looker, which is a market-leading analytics tool. So custom SQL or LookML is built to create a modeling layer in which all the metrics and data logic are effectively housed in one central location. So any changes to the LookML modeling layer is going to be propagated to any Looker dashboard that's using that model. So it really allows for a central data governance strategy and all of the heavy lifting and data logic to be decoupled from the tool itself. So that being said, the most common application of this concept is not new whatsoever. A well-built governed reporting layer, otherwise known as a data warehouse, serves this purpose exactly. A BI tool simply inherits the logic and model structure from the warehouse for the purposes of reporting out. So no transformations take place within the BI tool, and all data logic and transformation is strictly the domain of the warehouse itself. So really at its heart, this concept simply allows users to bring their own tool to whatever central governed data set that you have in your organization. So if a user gravitates towards Excel, if a user really likes Power BI, really any application, whatever, they have the ability to connect and run reports at their disposal. So embedded analytics is an excellent mechanism to make data more broadly accessible to your organization. So loosely defined, embedded analytics is the idea of placing analytics within an operational workflow or an operational workflow within analytics. So an extremely common use case, one that I encounter quite a bit, is looking at your sales reporting, observing a huge increase in sales volume for one particular customer, navigating the Salesforce to view the sales opportunity details, maybe referencing SharePoint to view customer history or case studies as a benchmark, and then keeping track of all of those breadcrumbs to make an educated guess as to the root cause of the sales spike. So at this point, you've navigated and cross-referenced across 3 separate portals to come to one conclusion. By merging these 3 separate work streams into one unified solution, however, you build a more cohesive, accessible user experience. So what also really helps this use case is the ease of use in which a lot of modern analytics platforms have built in out-of-the-box embedded capabilities within their products. So when I first started developing applications, embedded analytics either entailed complete custom web development or really stretching the capabilities, in some cases genuinely jailbreaking the capabilities of an existing BI tool. Luckily, most modern analytics tools offer out-of-the-box embedded capabilities within their product platform. So for example, Power BI Pro's licensing structure affords the users the ability to embed their reports in an iframe, via public URL, or simply into SharePoint. So this probably doesn't sound that groundbreaking to some of you, but I would just like to call out how big of a pain in the ass this was historically using BI tools. Now the literal starter tier of licensing within one of the analytics market leaders allows for embedding with 2 mouse clicks. So Power BI, Looker, Tableau, Qlik, AWS QuickSight, Sisense, among many others, all allow for native embedding capabilities, and in certain cases actually offer specific embedded only tiers of licensing if you're going to white label or productize your solution. So the point I'm trying to drive at here is the barrier to entry for embedded analytics has never been lower, especially if you're adopting a modern analytics solution. So that being said, there are some considerations around accessibility that you need to take into account. So running intensive workloads to start with takes a lot of horsepower, takes the ability to easily clone instances, and it's really only going to be best suited for customers on the cloud. So the pathway for this is only really going to be feasible when platforms such as Snowflake, AWS, Azure, or GCP are in consideration. The second key point is around headless BI. So the best tip I can give here is invest the time, the resources, and the energy in building a scalable data warehouse. By leveraging a cloud data warehouse such as Snowflake, you have the ability to offload all of the ingestion and transformation into the processes that feed into the data warehouse. So all of the logic lives in one central location, and a BI tool can simply be connected to the warehouse to report out. So Snowflake in particular has a lot of utility with some of the modern analytics vendors out there. Tools such as Power BI, Looker, Qlik, Tableau, all have the ability to connect to Snowflake as a data source, inherit data logic from the data warehouse, and allow for applications to be developed. Finally, the last point of consideration is around embedded analytics. For embedded analytics, cost is really going to be the big consideration here. Specific embedded tier licensing offered by most modern analytics vendors can get extremely expensive, extremely fast. So if this is a pathway for you, I'd always recommend some degree of capacity planning or cost estimation as a first or second step to really understand what BI vendor is going to support your solution in the most cost-effective manner. So for the next topic, I'm going to cover making data actionable. So we're going to be reviewing using embedded analytics for action, as well as leveraging bots and low-code apps. So let's say that you solved for the first paradigm of accessibility in building a superior data experience. The data your users need is available to them through varying means and mechanisms. The next step in building a cohesive data experience is taking your broadly accessible data and allowing action to be initiated against it. So where do you start in this process? So we were just talking about embedded analytics in the lens of accessibility, but embedded analytics is also an excellent mechanism for users to initiate action. So remember that embedded analytics also entails building in operational workflows into analytics. So I'll give you a good real life example in which we built a transportation application for a major beverage retailer that's a customer of ours. So we built an app that measured customer satisfaction with the drivers that were making delivery. Users could effectively input feedback on individual drivers or drivers that need corrective action or additional training. So this is really valuable because it fits to that one-stop shop paradigm that isn't found in traditional enterprise analytics. The bulk of analytics and reporting that I see out there today really provides valuable insights, but it ends exactly at that. If the user sees an anomaly within the reporting, they need to exit the reporting to take action or view additional data points that are contained within an ERP or a software system. So embedded analytics is a means to contain all of those necessary insights and actions into one central location. So another client example of ours was a simple write-back solution that we built into the reporting for a manufacturing client. Technicians or field sales reps that observed product anomalies could easily log these occurrences within the reporting for a specific product SKU so that corrective action could be taken. Again, this is nothing groundbreaking, but it built an immediate mechanism for these folks to log anomalies and quickly remedy a solution. So the next thing that you can leverage to initiate action within your solutions are bots or low-code apps. These are a great mechanism to build an easy form of action or alerting. One mechanism that I've seen in the enterprise space is the use of the Power Platform in the Microsoft stack. So Power Automate is a low-code utility within the Power Platform that you can use for triggers or alerting. So for example, if you want to input or add rows to your data set, export a report for paginated reporting, or simply trigger a data refresh, you can build in a Power Automate visual within your Power BI reporting to achieve this. It's just a simple button. The parameters are all set. All your user needs to do is just click on the button. Really, ultimately, what you're trying to drive here in user experience is cutting down the amount of steps a user needs to take and building a high degree of collaboration within your analytics. So instead of having to open up an email chain with Bob from accounting with a screenshot of an anomaly that you see in the reporting, build a mechanism into the reporting to alert Bob. So again, there are going to be some considerations around the concept and the idea of making data actionable. So first being the type of application that you're deploying is a big consideration, especially in the lens of embedded analytics. So simple use cases such as iframe embedding or writebacks don't really entail a high degree of technical sophistication. But when you begin to build custom web navigation that's independent of the tool itself, you begin to incorporate custom branding or themes or design aesthetics. This is where you begin to necessitate a skill set that's going to be a mixture of web development and traditional analytics development. So dependent on the level of complexity, you need to ensure that you have the right mixture of skill set in-house to support development. The second big consideration is the extent and the permissions at which you're giving your users to take action. So one recent action that we piloted internally at Analytics 8 is a simple bot, which gives the ability to consultants to select a project and add themselves to it to log or bill time. So prior to that, a consultant would need to send an email request to our accounting team, listing out the specific project and wait to be added. Now, the issue that we were immediately presented with here was, how do we govern this process? It's probably not a good idea to allow a consultant to add themselves to a project and bill time, all without the project manager being aware. So ultimately, a mechanism was built in where the project manager would ultimately get the request and final approval to add or deny. So making data actionable is going to be key, but building in guardrails is also going to be necessary in this process. Final point, action in analytics, especially when keeping a superior data experience in mind, is best suited to simplicity. So use cases are best kept at things like triggering alerts, kicking off workflows, and simple writebacks. Over-engineering a solution for the sake of action is only going to create a whole lot of confusion. So a good rule of thumb is 1 or 2 mouse clicks to perform an action. So think of examples that are already out there as a basis of what you're going to build into your solution. So things like writing collaborative notes in an online Word document, logging an email to Salesforce through Outlook. Practically speaking, these are straightforward examples. And the actions that you build in your analytics solution should be in the same thing. So the next topic I'm going to cover today is making data transparent. And we're going to be covering the topics of data catalogs, data glossaries, and data dictionaries. So fair warning, this content can be very dry, but it's critically important. I can't overstate how many customers and prospects reach out to us specifically around the concept of data governance and transparency. So the dreaded set of 2 numbers is a scenario that every data or analytics engineer has encountered in their project work. So essentially, you publish a report, a database table, a view, in which the numbers don't match or adhere to a business user set of numbers. This scenario is largely rooted in trust and transparency. When a new set of metrics is rolled out to an organization that really dictates future state company direction, it's only natural to maintain a certain level of skepticism of that data initially. People want to confirm before they trust. So how do you achieve trust in your data that in turn leads to user engagement, adoption, and in turn leads to a superior data experience? So let's start with the concept of the data catalog. So a data catalog is a pathway between a data glossary and a data dictionary. It's an organized inventory of data assets that informs users on available data sets and really helps them locate it quickly. So users have a clear view on what data the organization has, where it came from, where it's located, who has access to it, and any risks or sensitivities that may be involved, and it's all housed within one central location. I'm going to be clear that a data catalog is not something that you write up in a Word document. If you're moving towards this path, you should have a couple of things in place. Namely, a data glossary and a data dictionary are already in place. You're going to want a tool that can automate this process. So again, this should not be a manual process. Tools such as Elation, Alteryx, Click, among many others can all fit the bill here. Finally, the third thing that you're going to need are subject matter experts. A data catalog is a comprehensive artifact. It's built for both business and technical users. So you're going to need individuals within your organization who have competencies in both. So the second thing that you should leverage in order to make your data more transparent across your organization is this concept of a data glossary. So a data glossary contains concepts and definitions of business terms that are frequently used within day-to-day activities in your organization. So it's meant to be a single authoritative source for commonly used terms for all of your business users. So effectively, this is going to be where your data definitions live. But again, you're going to need a couple of things in place in order for this to work. So these include cross-functional input. as well as consensus and approval for agreed upon understandings of key business concepts and business terms. If you're going to have sales in your reporting, it's really critical to have a firm definition on what sales actually means and what constitutes the definition of sales. Accessibility to common business terms, such as words, phrases, acronyms, business concepts across the organization, those need to be really clear within a data glossary so everybody's speaking the same business language. I can't tell you how many times I started a development project. There was a core critical metric in the reporting that was referred to as an acronym, and nobody could explain to me what that acronym actually meant. You want to make sure everybody's clear on definitions and what these business terms actually mean across the organization. Finally, the last piece that you need within your data glossary are cross-reference terms and their relationships. So this is going to help to provide context, really easily identify relationships between terms for business users. So the final piece in terms of making data transparent is going to be a data dictionary. So a data dictionary is more technical documentation of data as well as its metadata. So it's going to consist of detailed definitions of dimensions, measure names, things that you commonly find within databases, data tables, or views. It's going to entail calculations as well as any other related information. So this information is going to be most beneficial to your technical users that work on the back ends of your system. So effectively, this is geared towards your data engineers so that they can easily design a relational database or a data structure that are going to meet business requirements. So when you're creating a data dictionary, again, there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. So number one, you're going to want a data glossary already in place, and you're going to want a data governance strategy to ensure that your business users are actually using it. The second, probably most critical point here is that you need a data integration tool to automate the process for building and maintaining your data dictionary. So I'm going to be clear, the effort required to do this manually is not worth the value you're going to get out of it. I really strongly recommend take advantage of the tools that have built-in capabilities, tools such as DBT, where you can enter descriptions as you're programming, and they'll be automatically documented to create a data dictionary. So there are a lot of tools out there that have these built-in capabilities. Definitely check if your existing tools in-house have these capabilities, and if they don't, look around for one that's going to fit to your purpose. The final thing that you need in your data dictionary are attributes such as data types or size, as well as any other technical metadata that's going to be relevant. So again, like the previous two concepts, there are a few considerations to keep in mind here. I will be completely blunt and transparent that when it comes to building a superior data experience, making data transparent is the component where organizations fall woefully short. I've seen a lot of half-hearted attempts at building a data dictionary or a data governance committee. So when you're approaching this, there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. Namely, you need to want to do this in order for this to even come remotely close to working. So what ends up derailing these initiatives around building a data catalog or a data dictionary is, number one, the amount of work that it entails, and number two, the perceived lack of return of value. I'm here to tell you that yes, it's a lot of coordinated time and effort, but also that it does have a high return on value. So there's a lot of talk out there today about being a data-driven culture. In my opinion, a data-driven company is one that has the ability to easily track data lineage, metric definitions, and easily decipher the context of their organizational data when they present it in end-state reporting. So the other key point, finding ways to incorporate data catalogs, data glossary, or data dictionary components into your analytics is a surefire way to enhance user experience. So in a previous project at Analytics 8, I was actually able to utilize field tags to add metadata to fields within my data model. So what this enabled me to do was basically tag a definition to every dimension or measure in my reporting. So when a user hovered over a field, the definition would pop up. It would be clear as day what they're looking at. If they wanted to reference those definitions even further, I actually built the data glossary as a standalone appendix into the back of the application. So building the context around data points that a user is interacting or using within an analytics tool adds so much more of a complete story. For those of you out there that are using Power BI, I strongly recommend using the tooltips functionality to achieve this purpose. Another key point, please leverage the tools and technology that are available to you. and do not approach this as a Word document or an Excel document. Before you make any new technology purchases, though, definitely take the time to see what capabilities you have built in within your existing tools. If you find that you have data dictionary capabilities available, use them and start building them into your data integration processes to update and maintain. Final point here. Ultimately, the key thing for any of these programs to work is the willingness of the organization to want to do it. Just because you ask business or technical users to adopt a program does not mean that they fully understand or endorse it. So the more you encourage being a data-driven culture and communicate the importance behind initiatives like this, the more natural it becomes for everyone to get on board. So the final topic that I'm going to cover today is offering valuable data assets as a product. So we'll cover what exactly that means. We'll go through a customer example that we've deployed previously, as well as some considerations and tips. So data monetization as a concept is fairly straightforward. Your organization has a valuable data asset that can be offered as a product, and some sort of analytic solution or product is built to make this data accessible as a paid product, typically via a subscription service. So the value in this situation is going to be fairly binary as well. It's an analytics product that you can feasibly make money on. But going a layer deeper, it really allows for deeper penetration into different markets and partnerships. It maximizes the value of your data and allows for high profit margins provided the demand is there. In most cases, a successful product can actually help offset the cost of software licensing. So a good real life example was a project that we undertook for a client of ours, Epic, who's a major legal services provider. So Epic has a host of benchmarking data at their disposal that they could feasibly compare against client data to really help measure litigation spend and use to reduce costs. So initially, the mechanism in which they were serving up this data was effectively custom Excel reports they were offering up to their customer base. So we were brought on to build their analytics solution in Power BI, which was then white labeled as Epic's own product using a Power BI embedded SKU. The reporting was served up in a custom portal to their client base as a subscription service. So effectively, Epic identified a valuable data asset, productized it, and sold it as subscription analytics. So again, there are some considerations around a data monetization product. So a successful data monetization use case isn't going to be a 4-week development effort. It entails a much wider lens in terms of strategic planning than an internal reporting use case. So for starters, you need to identify, possess, and qualify the value of a data asset specific to your organization. So data monetization is a dead end if you don't have a data asset that can actually command value. So things like survey data, benchmarking data, consumer interaction data, market research data, anything really geared towards marketing analytics, these are going to be valuable data points that are going to command value out there in the open market. So the next key point, design and prototyping in this process takes on paramount importance, in particular with the various business units that are going to be involved in this. So one of my first projects ever at Analytics 8 was actually a data monetization application build. So the initial development stages weren't actually development. They were design sessions with the product marketing team, value add inputs from the sales team, feasibility exercises with the data services team, and effectively keeping everything on the rails with the project management team. So it took coordinated planning and ensuring that all teams are on the same page before we were ever really even able to write a single line of code. So remember that development has to be framed within the context of building a product. There's opportunity cost everywhere in this process, and spinning wheels on non-essential tasks is really going to be detrimental to development. Next key consideration, if you're planning on building a data product on a modern analytics platform, the tools that you'd likely adopt would be extremely similar to those that you'd adopt in an embedded analytics solution. So the rationale being it's an external facing solution, albeit with subscription or paywall element to it. So most of these solutions are going to necessitate some sort of custom portal or home screen in which users access the reporting or analytics. So white labeling of these solutions is the popular choice here. So for example, if you're using Power BI or Looker as the backbone of your product, you'll likely want to go to lengths to conceal to the users that they're using Power BI or Looker. From a user experience perspective, you want them to think that they're paying for an entirely custom-built tool, even if it's built on a widely adopted BI platform. Final consideration here. There are definite considerations when deploying products that need to be fully vetted before going too far down the path of development, namely an authentication and SSO strategy. This needs to be firmly established. If you have a mixture of internal and external users to your organization that are accessing your product, the mechanism and methods in which they log in, authenticate, and access the reports have to be accounted for. It's not the sexiest concept in the world, but having an authentication and security strategy in place will really help to account for accidentally exposing sensitive or confidential data that's going to be a part of your solution. So wanted to wrap up the presentation with a couple of key takeaways. So why should you care about anything that I covered today? If you're going to boil it down to one element, it's going to be speed. So the velocity in which an organization can make a decision is inherently tied to the data and insights they have at their disposal. And the ability to easily access, act on, and decipher this information is core to that velocity. So case in point, Analytics 8 as an organization went through this exact same process. So we built our own data warehouse. We brought in all our core sales, budget, headcount information. We actually built out our own reporting to track our own key metrics. So gut feel intuition is no longer a barometer to pivot or make a quick decision for us. Rather, we have hard data supporting our strategic initiatives. So if I need to see sales opportunities and how they're progressing, I have that visibility down to the hour. So the other key point of importance, organizations and individuals are simply far more analytically mature than they were 5 or 6 years ago. So when I'm in a sales cycle, I no longer have to spend time explaining what a business intelligence tool is or the merits of a cloud data warehouse. Organizations do not need to be sold on the value of these solutions. Rather, they're looking for the path of least resistance to get there. So this is going to place pressure on data teams to perform and build a supporting architecture to really support analytics initiatives. The final point, as data and analytics become more commonplace, users are going to demand more from their solutions. So there's going to come a point in time where everything that I've outlined in this presentation will shift from things you should consider adding into your analytics solutions to things your users feasibly expect and demand. So the more comfortable and ahead of the curve you get with these concepts, the better equipped your organization is going to be. So that being said, that's all the content that I have for today. So I'll open it up to any questions that anybody might have.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. That was really great. Lots of great information in there. Super helpful. For any of you that have questions or follow-up comments, please feel free to reach out to us or to Kevin. We are going to be sending out the recording later today. We also do have other resources for you. You can sign up for our monthly newsletter on our website. You can also find Kevin, the company, and many others from our executive team on LinkedIn. They're posting regularly about things happening in the industry and some other good insights and tips. So with that, I think that concludes our session today. Thank you again, Kevin, and thank you for joining us today and taking the time out of your day to join us. We hope you have a great day.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.